Boy.
You ever wanted to drive around a vintage refrigerator, but feel really cool while doing it? Boy, I tell you what, the 2025 VW ID Buzz is calling your name. Finally, an EV with personality. What up? The VW Bus. It's just a big old blocky, chunky little guy that we know and love starting in the 50s and kind of fizzling out in the later 70s. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's back. And I gotta tell you, it's an EV and it's got an actual personality. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about whether or not you should daily drive the new VW ID Buzz. The reason why I say that it has more personality than other EVs is that it seems like a lot of the other EVs are just kind of bland. And it's kind of like a suburban kitchen that's just all white. Cabinets are white, countertops are white. Not saying there's anything wrong with that, it just kind of gets boring after a little while. That's how I feel about other EVs, is that they just kind of have the same recipe and they stick to it. VW ID Buzz, it's different.
It's got some pizzazz going on.
As usual, in the Can You Daily Drive videos, we'll be going over the exterior, interior, tech, and driving experience. Now, obviously, we can't really talk about the sound of the vehicle because it doesn't have exhaust. We didn't have a lot of time with the VW ID Buzz. I think we only had it for 2 days and I got to drive it at the end of the second day. So this one is going to be primarily from the desk. So let's start off with some general specs on this vehicle. It is the first edition. We had the two-tone white and mahi green. It also has the 20-inch wheels. It's the 4Motion all-wheel drive. And that actually came in handy because the first day that we had it, it was very snowy. For torque, this has 413 pound-feet. Originally, when we were in the car and looking at the Monroney, we saw that the weight was 5,900 pounds, but after doing some research, it looks like the first edition is actually around 6,100 pounds, 6,200 pounds. So I personally was expecting that it would be like 7,000 pounds or heavier just because of the sheer size of the vehicle, but nope, it was less than I was expecting. Let's go ahead and get into the details, starting with the exterior. So the exterior of the VW ID Buzz, just real quirky. Like I said, it just has a nice personality to it. And I think one thing that I really appreciate about the VW ID Buzz is that, like, VW did not have to make this car. Like, they've got the Atlas, which is huge as is. But they still decided to make it and just honestly bring some life into the EV market. The two-tone exterior is really cool just because it's got like a retro styling to it. Headlights and taillights, I'm glad that they didn't make them like circular like the old bus. I don't think it would have worked with the exterior design as much. So big fan of the LEDs on those lights. The front's super unique. The front grille, I guess is what you would call it. Not the biggest fan of that. Otherwise, you know, it's just a classic shape, and they did a good job with it. I love the sliding doors and how it has the porthole style window. For the middle row of seats. Since this is the first edition, it came with the 20-inch wheels, which they look proportional enough. I do like all of the other LED accent lights that are on this vehicle. For instance, the front badge is just a giant VW and it lights up. And when you open up the door, it's even got the, I think it's like door sill lighting, or it's when the light turns on in the door and puts something onto the ground, like a symbol. It says ID on the ground, which is pretty sweet. Driving it around, it certainly attracts plenty of attention. Granted, it is a new car, and new cars that look like this especially get plenty of looks. Yeah, I don't know. If I was gonna modify anything on this car, I think I would just like tint the front windows, and that would be about it. The size of the vehicle, at least in my opinion, it is pretty gigantic. Oh, and as for the clearance of the vehicle, you're definitely not going to be scraping on anything unless it's a massive speed bump, like unusually massive. So yeah, like if you're maneuvering around in snow, it shouldn't be too big of an issue for you. Oh yeah, another thing that I'm glad about is that they didn't do a super funky styling on the wheel design. It's just kind of like classic Daisy looking wheels, which fits the car well. I'm glad they didn't do something funky like a lot of Kias do, where it's like a, I don't know, off-balance design. I'll put up an example of what that looks like here in a second, so you can get an understanding of what I'm referencing. But yeah, all of the additional trim from the first edition package and the badging, it all looks cool. Not many complaints about the VW ID Buzz exterior. And if you're wondering why I'm talking about exterior in a daily driving video, it's because you probably want to like the look of the car that you're driving. At the very least, you should enjoy the paint. On to the interior of the car. Really good first impressions. It's very open and airy. I really liked the combination of colors that we had in there. It was like this dune and gray color primarily. And then there were a couple of black accents in there too. Oh yeah, and the dash had this wood. Frankly, I don't really care if it's real wood or not. It looked cool. Oh yep, look at that. It's simulated wood. And then there was a lot of synthetic leather around. VW calls it a perforated VTEX leatherette. Yeah, it felt good. Felt like it was durable, easy to clean, which is good because I imagine that people that buy these are families, and they will probably have kids and or dogs in there. From what I could tell, this seems like it'll hold up pretty well. Probably one of my favorite features on the inside is that giant glass roof that they have, and you can actually dim the roof. And by dim, I mean tint it with the swipe of a button, which is crazy futuristic and very cool. The seats themselves were also very comfy, with the exception of one thing. The third row seats. First day that I was in this vehicle, I was in the third row. And I was looking for probably 10 to 12 minutes, approximately, kind of fumbling around trying to figure out how to adjust the god-dang rear part of the seat, like the angle of it. And holy cow, they don't have it. You can scoot the seat forward and back, but like the actual tilt of the back, the lean, doesn't exist. So yeah, basically you're in the back, and you're always just kind of sitting like forward, which isn't the best. So not a big fan of that. Definitely could not nap back there easily. But it is a third row seat, and I'm sure that they expect children to use it. But man, if I could just have one wish about that car, it would be the one. All the seats fold in some way, which is great. And the rear even has this like split shelf in it already, kind of like what people do aftermarket to their SUVs or trucks. There's like a shelving system in there. Kind of feels like what they were trying to mimic, which is cool. I will say that one thing that I'm a sucker for are good armrests. This car had so many armrests.
Hey Marty, how many armrests do you have up there?
You know, believe it or not, Jake, as the queen of armrests, I am impressed. There's 2 armrests. Whoa.
You could say that's like royalty.
It is royalty. Look at that.
Marty wants to be royal. I don't know any of the rest of it.
It was fantastic. I was in armrest heaven. An interesting thing that a lot of modern cars are doing now is that they're putting these like engravings in interior plastic panels. So the ID Buzz, they put the ID Buzz silhouette kind of everywhere they could. Just in case you forget what you're driving around in. Not that it's that big of a deal, it's just something that I noticed and I'm like, wow, that is there. So the day that I got to drive it, I liked the steering wheel layout, liked the design of it. It just felt very glitzy and comfortable. But as the night fell, I noticed the accent lighting more and more, which was awesome. I am such a sucker for ambient lighting, like you have no idea.
Oh my god. Guys, they have it. They have ambient light. Yes.
How much joy that brings me, especially when you can customize it. And it turns out you can customize them and pick whatever color you want. You can even do two-tone ambient lighting on the inside, for God's sake. One thing that we noticed with the giant glass roof that was over our heads is that, that's almost perfectly shaped to place a pop top, which we all very secretly hope that VW does at some point. All right, now that we got the interior covered, let's go ahead and talk about the tech. And boy, oh boy, is this thing loaded with tech. You got basically all the safety features that you would want, like the lane tracing assist, regen braking, safety stuff, you know, all of that. I found that navigating on the big screen in the front was pretty straightforward. It was easy to figure it out. It's not like you had to go through a whole bunch of menus or anything like that. It was very user-friendly. When I was messing around with that, I found that this vehicle comes equipped with seated heats. Boys and girls, seated heats. It's pretty nice. And massaging seats, which is pretty nice. Of course, when you are trying to park the vehicle, it has like a top-down view, so you can kind of see 360 around your car, and it does have a backup camera. One thing with the backup camera that we noticed is that, good God, it suffers from an extreme case of fisheye. You're looking at the cars behind you, and they're just like, they just go big, they go chonk, they get big chonk on them. So it's kind of difficult to figure out how close you are to things, but regardless, I am glad that they have those cameras on there because parking that thing would be kind of a pain without it. Of course, as cars get more complex and as more luxurious features become more common creature comforts, I always wonder how the complexity of this tech will hold up over the years. And with any kind of new car, just like I said with the Lotus Emira, we won't really know until a few years down the line. I hope that it does well, but only time will tell. One complaint that I did have about the tech is that the lane assist was a bit odd. We noticed a couple of times where if two lanes split into three, or if the lane markers weren't really all that evident, the bus would kind of lose its mind a bit and yank around. Even if there were clearly marked lines, the lane assist was very aggressive. It wasn't like the Prius. The Prius is probably the best experience with tech nannies that I've ever had. The Prius's lane assist was like very natural, super straightforward. The ID Buzz, if you are kind of drifting in your lane, it freaking yanks the shit out of you, brother. I guess under tech, I should talk about the miles that this thing has, or the range, if you will. So right now, it's only got 200 miles of range, which is pretty abysmal. When you think about it, I think most EVs try to reach like a 400 mile range. That's when it can kind of start to be used as a normal car, in my opinion. And maybe it's because at Shift Colorado magazine, we're all kind of old school car enthusiasts. You know, we like our internal combustion engines. We had a lot of trouble getting this thing to charge.
I don't know what that is. Tap your RFID card.
Download the app.
Ah.
And didn't really want to charge at really any location that we took it to other than the dealership. So it could be user error on our part. Yeah, just the 200 miles of range and the issues with the charging infrastructure, or it could just be the car itself because it is a first edition, so there's going to be bugs. I think I'm going to dock a couple of points on it because it seems a bit confused. By that I mean, usually when you think VW bus, you think of like camping, outdoor adventures, going to concerts, etc., which this thing is definitely laid out to be able to do those types of things. But with the 200 miles of range and the issues with charging, I don't know. It's not the greatest aspect of the vehicle. But hopefully VW recognizes this, and especially if they do put a pop top where that glass roof is, hopefully they make an extended range model, or, just bear with me, they make a hybrid. That would be sick. As for the driving experience, very interesting. I felt quite at peace when I was driving it around. Your driving position is a lot higher than you'd expect, but it just kind of adds to the whole experience of it, honestly, because you feel like you're driving around a bus. The brakes were a little bit touchy, in my opinion, but the regen braking was smooth, so that I appreciated. The steering, other than the lane assist freaking out, was just very direct, very light. Visibility was fantastic. It's a bus, for God's sake. So yeah, I had never had any issues seeing a car next to me. Power, it was great because it's an EV. Sometimes it felt like the throttle was a little bit sensitive. It just kind of felt a bit twitchy. The overall road noise inside was extremely quiet. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of body roll in a car like that. You're definitely going to feel the weight of the vehicle. The biggest annoyance when it comes to driving experience was the suspension. The front felt fine, very luxurious. The rear felt really stiff, like something out of a 2013 Nissan Altima. Now, I'm sure there's a reason why they did that, but that's just something that we noticed, is that the front suspension is way more plush than the rear. Oh yeah, and plenty of headroom. No issues there. The seats also had tons of lumbar support adjustment for the front and middle row, of course. For the third row, no. But yeah, I think those were all of my thoughts on the VW ID Buzz, taking into consideration the interior, exterior, tech, driving experience, and with this being a brand new car, so we'll have to see how the reliability is in a couple of years. But I would say if you are using this in the city or in the suburbs, I'd give it probably an 8 out of 10, and that score is brought down quite a bit just because of the range. Even for suburban and city driving, that range anxiety is going to be real. But everything else about the vehicle, it's got plenty of space, it's all-wheel drive, good clearance, comfortable, good looking. Tech is easy to figure out, which is super impressive. Yeah, I mean, I think you could totally daily drive one of these as long as you're prepared to be charging it a lot. But I think that's going to end the video, guys. I appreciate you watching. If you enjoy content like this, make sure to leave a subscribe.
Yes, leave a subscribe.
On that note, I upload every single Sunday. I'll see you in the next one.
I'll be merging now. Everybody get down.
Hi, Morty.
Hello.